Wuthering Waves become a global phenomenon? Is this true?
Wuthering Waves is already a global phenomenon level game this year, and that's true. There isn't a single gacha game listed here except for Wuthering Waves. That is crazy. Wuthering Waves is the gift that keeps on giving.
What's
and
this?
by giving, I mean giving ample opportunities to laugh at all the people that said this was going to be a catastrophic failure. Earlier this morning at 4:24, I know I was awake at 4 in the morning, much to my dismay, I made a tweet covering an article that was posted over on GameLook.
Okay.
I stated, haters said that Wuthering Waves wouldn't make much money in its first month, that it's dead on arrival. Yet according to data from GameLook, it's already made $110 million US and is expected to reach $140 million within its first month of release. So,
That's holy shit. That's more than Honkai Star Rail and Genshin. Jesus.
hours later, a thread was made over on the Gacha Gaming subreddit titled Wuthering Waves almost recouped the entire development cost in a month.
Wow.
According to a GameLook article, Wuthering Waves' estimated revenue since launch is at least $110 million. By the end of Update 1.0, it could exceed $130 million. In addition,
Jesus
Wuthering Waves
Christ.
appeared at the Apple conference. The game has received quite a lot of success, and it really has.
I can
the top
see that.
comment is, God, I hope they use that money well on better translators, voice directors, and especially hire Vanguard to improve the game's piss-poor music. I do agree on the translation and the localization.
Yeah,
I
sure.
also agree on the voice direction.
That's
Chapter
crazy.
6
Yeah, it is.
or Act 6 was phenomenal, but that can't be said for Acts 1 through 5. There were performances that definitely stood out, like Gion, like Scar, but the
I
vast
feel
majority...
like really, I looked at that Gacha Gaming subreddit a couple of times, and it seems like the people that are on that subreddit really don't want Wuthering Waves to succeed. They really don't want, and I think that I know why. I think that a lot of them are already like super invested in like other existing gacha games. So they don't want to see a new game come up and be popular. Because if a new game is the new biggest game, now all of their money that they spent on their current biggest game is like they're not playing the biggest game anymore, right? Because like imagine you've invested over the course of 3 years, $15,000 into Genshin Impact, and then somebody tells you your game is dying. Well, where's that money going? Well, I know where it's going. It's going where it always was, but you didn't want to admit. It's going into the fucking garbage. Sunk cost fallacy? Yeah, exactly. You think WoW players' minds work any different? No, I don't. I think it's the same thing.
already needed a lot of direction that just wasn't there. Specifically talking about the article over on GameLook, Ming Chao, which is Wuthering Waves, made a successful appearance at Apple's WWDC conference with cumulative revenue exceeding 800 million. GameLook reports in the 2 weeks since it was officially launched, the discussion among players of the second game, Wuthering Waves, has never stopped. While the discussion in the player community remains hot, Kudo has also been adjusting and optimizing the game content. After the second half of version 1.0 of Wuthering Waves was released in advance on June 6th, the results of topping the best-selling list in 6 countries and regions and entering the top 10 of the best-selling lists in 29 countries and regions.
That's pretty impressive, man.
It's enough to show that Wuthering Waves is not what many rhythm-setting players say it is. There are still many players who are actually playing the game, and they're also looking forward to Kudo's optimization measures and subsequent updates. That's true, it topped the charts in so many countries around the world. It was the most downloaded game, reaching over 30 million downloads over the course of just that couple week period. And as noted, there are still plenty of mobile players specifically that are hoping and waiting to get into the game.
Yeah, the game
Once
doesn't run that well on a phone, as far as I know.
they can, revenue is no doubt going to spike even higher. At the 2024 Apple WWDC Global Developers Conference held in the early morning of June 11th, Beijing
Well, all
time.
they need to do really is like, because they're already doing this. Like, so there's like two female characters in the game that like there's like this one girl in like the campaign where you're like pinning her down on like the ground, and there's another one that they just added where it's like at the end of the story, it's like you are like basically dating her, kind of like Camellia. Yeah, whatever the fuck. I don't know how to say her name. But yeah, she's like the red one, right? She pins you, maybe. And anyway, so this happens. Like, that's all they need to do is just keep doing more of that, because like it's so easy to farm simps with this shit. It's crazy. Like, I can't even believe it, how easy it is. But it works every time.
Wuthering Waves once again brought some good news.
It's nuts.
The game display
How?
section introducing the Mac section on the day of the press conference, Wuthering Waves appeared. This is also the only Chinese game product that appeared in this conference.
Oh.
Other games included Dead Island 2, Sniper Elite 2, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Control, Palworld, Resident Evil, Riven, Prince of Persia, Valheim, WoW, Frostpunk, Resident Evil, and, well, I mean, I think that I see 2 Resident Evils. I did. And RoboCop. The biggest news at yesterday's conference was Apple's announcement of a partnership with OpenAI. This is largely unimportant. Let's skip to the part specifically concerning Wuthering Waves. Here we go. What does the appearance of Wuthering Waves at this conference mean? Before we delve any deeper into the article, let me take a moment.
I'll tell you what it means. It's that people want to play like a good game with good combat. Like, that's literally it. Nobody gives a shit about anything else besides that. People want to play a game that plays well, and Wuthering Waves does play well. That's what really matters. Like, people always like to get things twisted and like, you know, turn it into something else. And, like, that's why Genshin does so well, too. It's because it plays well. Like, that's the reason. The lag's insane, though.
To thank my incredible patrons over on Patreon and my YouTube channel members who allow for me to continue to do dedicated videos like this every single day. You guys are phenomenal. I can't thank you all enough for the support. During the session where Apple executives showcase the games that will be available on Apple Mac devices this year, a poster.
I also think that it's pretty obvious that, like, mental illnesses on the internet are on the rise at a disturbingly fast level, or rate, excuse me. And I think that if you had, like, 2 graphs, right? So, like, if you made a graph like this, and let's see here. Go ahead. The red is mental illness, and then green is gotcha. Oops, let me make it green. Gotcha game players. And so, like, if you had 2 lines here, the lines would go up like this. So you can see kind of, So I think this is really where we're having a situation, right? And I think everybody knows this is true, right? Everybody knows it's true. Definite correlation. Yeah, I think it's pretty much the same thing. I wonder why. I don't.
For Wuthering Waves appeared on the big screen. It can be seen that the games listed alongside Wuthering Waves in the new game list include classic works such as Sniper Elite 4, which has been around for 7 years, as well as Frostpunk 2 and Assassin's Creed Shadow, which have not yet been officially launched. It includes well-known AAA standalone masterpieces such as Resident Evil and Dead Island, as well as online games such as Phantom Blue, which has been extremely popular this year. I'm assuming Phantom Blue here is Palworld. It can be said that these games are all highly watched works in their respective fields, and the fact that Magic Tide, it can be said that these games are all highly watched works in their respective fields.
30
and
million
the fact
downloads.
that Wuthering Waves is among them actually shows that from Apple's perspective, Wuthering Waves is already a global phenomenon level game this year. That's true. There isn't a single gacha game listed here except for Wuthering Waves. That is crazy. It is not difficult to understand why Apple listed it as a blockbuster game this year. After Wuthering Waves was officially launched, it not only topped the best.
What are the age demographics of gacha games? I feel like people of all ages play them. But, like, the one thing about gacha games that's different than, like, other types of games is that they have a really big audience of, like, young kids that play them. Whereas I think that games like, for example, like Counter-Strike or, like, I don't know, like, other games are like Dragon's Dogma 2, for example. Like, I think that, of course, there's kids that play every game. But I think that, like, the ratio is, like, much higher for gacha games because they're, like, cartoons. And, like, the way that the stories are told is, like, kind of usually, like, it's a little bit immature, you know?
In the Asia Pacific market, but also
it's
achieved quite good response
that's another reason. It's free to play. It's not $70 like Dragon's Dogma.
Today, the global downloads of Wuthering Waves have exceeded 30 million. According to GameLook's estimates,
that's
and this is just an estimate, mind you, this is not set in stone, this is not verified, 100% valid, as Kudo have not confirmed specifics, but when it comes to revenue posted online, for any gacha game, it's always an estimate. Wuthering Waves' global revenue on all platforms, including PC, not just mobile exclusively here, has exceeded 800 million last week. According to this trend, Wuthering Waves' revenue in the first natural month is very likely to exceed 1 billion yuan. Such a first month revenue is a very explosive performance in the global market this year, and that's true. 110 million US dollars, potentially 130 plus.
I feel like also, like with gacha games, this is another thing, is that I think that every gacha game has a lifespan. And like, and I know that like it can exist beyond that lifespan, but like in terms of like success, like it has a success lifespan. And I think the reason why is that gacha games live and die based off of the characters that get introduced into the game. And I think that once you introduce enough characters into the game, there will become overlap with the nuances and the vibes of the new characters with existing characters, which will make the new introductions less exciting or less exciting more often, right? So like every once in a while, you'll still have a good one, but like you're going to have less of those. It's like a TV series. Yeah, kind of, right? They run out of waifus, right? Because like, yeah, you can have, like, for example, you can only bring out the goth mommy waifu one time, and it's the first time that you've had one, right? Because, yeah, people will get the second and the third one, sure, but they already have the first one. So, like, that diminishing return is there. You see kind of what I'm saying, right? And like they have, you know, like there's the different like girl archetypes. And so they release like every girl archetype. And then after they do that, then it's like, well, you got to release the same archetypes again with like maybe a different color. So like there's diminishing returns on and on and on, right? And that's how it happens. Don't underestimate thirst. Yeah, this well dries off eventually. Yeah, because people, like the new characters are not as exciting because there's so many other characters that already exist. It's just diminishing returns. So I think that's the big reason. At that point, people won't quit because they're investment. Yeah, but people won't get excited about the game either. Because like also, like for example, like playing Genshin, how could I possibly go back and play Genshin right now when there's like 80 characters in the game and like I don't have any of them? Because like, so that's people that like understand it, like, damn, like I have all this stuff I'm missing. Like basically like these people have, like, think of it as like a toolbox, right? Like these people have like 80 tools in their toolbox. I've got 7. I'm going to feel like I'm at a disadvantage and I'm going to feel like I missed the boat on playing the game. You see what I'm saying? Like, and I get, right? It's like, you don't need all of them, right? But like, that's the like, I'm talking about the psychology. Like, I'm not talking about the logic. I'm talking about the psychology. So like, wouldn't you like, that's why people get excited for a new game like this to come out, because then they get to start on the ground level. Yeah, the FOMO. So basically FOMO keeps people in the game, but it also keeps people out of the game, because the people that are out of the game, the FOMO acts as a barrier to entry, so they don't want to get into it because they've already been fucking playing the game. Or sorry, they haven't been playing the game, and so they've missed all these things that the people that have been playing the game already have.
By the time the month ends, we have to factor in here that we're also getting Jinza's banner towards the end of the month, so we got a few days of revenue from Jinza's banner as well to add to the no doubt monolithic amount of revenue that Kudo has received, that they have earned through the Yinlin and Gion banners, along with all the whales that are trying to push ahead. On the other hand, Apple gave Wuthering Waves global recommended resources today in more than 100 countries worldwide on April 22 and May 23rd. This shows that not only excellent results achieved after the game was launched, but also the game quality itself was recognized by Apple before the official launch. The achievements made by Wuthering Waves after the early release of the second half of version 1.0 on June 6th have demonstrated that the quality of the game itself is strong enough. At the same time, Kudo's series of operational remedial measures.
Well, the reality is, like, there's almost no features in Wuthering Waves that are unique. So the ecosystem is the same system that's in Blue Protocol. The upgrade system is the same system that's in every single game in, what do you call it? Every single game in a gacha game. Like, everything in Wuthering Waves, very few things, I'd have to really think about it, because I haven't played a lot of gacha games, played like a few of them, right? But almost everything that I know of, there's not a single thing that I see in that game that's like unique or different. But it's just good. That's it. That's literally it. It's just good. Like, people, it's like Power World, right? Power World didn't have a lot of unique stuff. It was just good. Literally combat? Wait, what? No. You think combat is unique with Wuthering Waves? No, it's not. You attack, the mob has a health bar. You character swap to reduce the stamina bar. Intro and outro, I'd say, are new. No, Tower of Fantasy had that. Like, if you swapped in a character whenever the character, like, their intro was empowered, then it would do damage. Yeah, no, that's a Punching Graven. Yeah, that's not new.
To the game content after the launch have demonstrated to players their attitude and ability for long-term continuous operation. After the release of the second half of version 1.0 and Wuthering Waves' strong entry into the top 5 of the domestic iOS best-selling list, more and more silent players began to speak out. Well, yeah, they were very vocal. You want to know why? Because they didn't expect Wuthering Waves to achieve the success that it did, so they started losing their minds. They were like, oh my god, there's no way. We have to try and debunk this. There were 34 million pre-registered players. Clearly,
It's
they were
all fake.
all bots. Oh
It's
my
all
god, there were
fake.
30 million downloads. Most
Fake.
of them were probably just people
It's
that
fake.
were re-rolling.
It's all
they
fake.
made $100 million plus. Well,
That's all
I mean,
fake. It's
you
fake
know,
money. It's not real
Genshin
money.
Impact made more than $100 million. Oh, Honkai Star Rail also made more than $100 million. How else
Yeah.
can we attempt to lessen the impact that Wuthering Waves has had on the gacha scene? They're mauling. They're losing their shit every time Wuthering Waves has an achievement. Haters are the first people to complain. They're the
And
first.
I'm going to tell you another reason why people don't like Wuthering Waves and want to see it fail. It's because Wuthering Waves is hard. Like, and I'm not saying it's like as hard as Melania and Elden Ring, but it's hard. Like, if you go and you do a, what's that, Hologram 6 boss, that's challenging. That is a challenging boss. And if you compare it to Star Rail, which is fucking turn-based combat, so, like, there's no real, like, dexterity, reaction, like, difficulty there. Then you also have Genshin, which very seems like it is not even remotely hard. So guess what happens? Hard and mobile standards. Yes, it is. It is. And so, like, I guarantee you that there are people with big egos that played Wuthering Waves, and they can't get past Hologram 5. That's not true. They can't get past Hologram 4. So now they don't want to see this game win, because if that game wins, then they lose.
First people to cover it, which just further boosts the popularity of the game. More people are talking about it. More people are curious about it. As noted, this is an estimate. This is not a 100% confirmed, defined number.
No, I don't know yet.
Actual, real, legitimate revenue could be significantly, exponentially higher, or it could ultimately be lower. But judging by the rankings, we've seen how it has been absolutely dominating Japan. It makes sense that these estimates are fairly accurate. 1.1 is releasing in literally 2 weeks. We have Jinsa coming. We have Zhongli coming. We have an entirely new region. We have tons of content.
they're gonna add
I'm
new shit to the
incredibly
game, of
excited,
course.
and I'm very curious to see how the game continues to evolve. I'll be here documenting it every step of the way. Now, if Wuthering Waves is not a gacha game you're all interested in, absolutely no problem. I got you covered with 2 different videos on screen right now. Might be more up your alley.
So I got to talk about why this happens, right? I'll link y'all the video and, give it a like. That's good. But, like, what I'm really trying to say here, people that want to shit on how it is now, well, here's really what it is, right? Is these games, the majority of people who are on the subreddits for gacha games are currently playing gacha games. Like, you would logically assume that. Like, people that are fans of something are probably doing it. And, posting about it on a subreddit, probably doing it. So, under that logic, the people that are, like, the native user base of that subreddit are people that are already invested into another game. Logically. Because Wuthering Waves just came out. So, because it just came out, and they're already invested into another game, and I think gacha players are, like, inherently and uniquely negative about other games besides their game being popular, because every game doesn't want to hit end of service, right? Like, that's the bad thing. The native gacha nation, yeah, well, that's basically what happened, right? Instead of welcoming competition, well, they don't want competition. because competition devalues. So you have to understand, like, you take a step back. Why do people care about skins in video games? Well, I'll tell you why they care. They care about skins in video games because other people can see them. If nobody else could see your skin in a video game, I guarantee you skin purchases would plummet by like 95%. This would immediately happen. So why does that matter? Why am I bringing this up? The reason why is to create a narrative or a foundation of the idea that people do things and buy things and accomplish things in video games in order to be conspicuous about those accomplishments. They want people to acknowledge that as like, oh, wow, that's really cool. Oh, wow, like you succeeded in this, right? Because like being good at a game that doesn't matter, nobody really cares. It's the status that it brings. You're right. And it might sound silly. And the reason why it sounds silly is because it is silly. Every gacha game is single player and nobody goes around showing these are skins. I understand that it's not a one-to-one comparison, but please try to think abstractly in just a little bit, okay? I'm just trying to paint a picture about how the majority of people that spend a lot of money on luxury items or exclusive items are people that are doing it because they want to be acknowledged by other people. It is that simple. They want to be acknowledged. Whether it's somebody saying "cool car, mister," somebody saying "oh wow, is that a Gucci bag? Like I bet you must be rich." Whether that's "oh my god, you bought the $500 faker skin. I guess your parents didn't love you." Whether it's somebody saying "wow, you E6 this character. Have you taken your medication today?" Whatever the reason is, they still want to be acknowledged for what they're doing. That's what matters, right? They want the acknowledgement. So people don't want their game to die because if their game dies or loses popularity, they lose part of that acknowledgement. Do you see where I'm going with this? Do you see how it all fits together? So it makes sense that the subreddit is going to be negative towards new gacha games because it's in those people's best interest to not have new gacha games come out that are successful because they are already and literally invested in those games. It's that simple. Maintain the value of the skins. Exactly. They want to maintain the value of their accounts. And like a gacha game, for example, like Tower of Fantasy, the game's fucking dead. Like, where's Tower of Fantasy here? Let me see. Can I find it? There's no way it's all the way down here, right? I must have missed it. There it is. $700,000, right? That, like, this game was all the way up here whenever it first came out. And now it's all the way down there. And you know what that means? That means all the money that you spent in Tower of Fantasy, people care about it less. That's the way it is. They blew it. They did. Well, what I'm saying is it's not about whether they blew it or not. It's about the fact that those games, the value dropped. Yeah, the value of the account dropped. The value of the accomplishments dropped. The value of everything dropped. And here's another really good example, right? Is like if you go and you look at World of Warcraft, being a top player in WoW used to be the biggest fucking deal. That used to be like, bro, if you were like a gladiator in WoW, that was something that mattered, that people cared about. Now, nobody gives a shit about it. Nobody knows what it is. But you know what they do care about still? If you're challenger in League. They do. And you know why? It's because League is a much bigger game. No, they don't. They do. They absolutely do. Because there's a larger audience of people that are excited and positive about that game. It's supply and demand. Yeah, exactly. Like Valorant's the same thing, like Radiant and Valorant. So the reason why they keep trying to push down these gacha games is just for that reason. That is the only reason, and that is that's going to keep happening. It's going to happen with that Project Mugen game. It's going to happen with Zenless Zone Zero. It's going to happen with Azure Permilia. It's going to happen with Arknight's Infield. It's going to happen with every single one of these games. And it also happens with MMOs. Because MMOs are the same thing. But with MMOs, the investment isn't money, it's time. Like, for example, I remember I got a girl to start talking to me because I had a lot of achievements in WoW. This was in like 2013. And she was hot. And so now, can you do that? Probably not as much. Do you know why? It's because the game isn't as big as it used to be. And you're casting a smaller net. There's not as many fish. So what's the value of being very good at a video game if it won't attract e-girls? Why would you care about being good at a video game if it doesn't get you an e-girl? There's no point. So back to this, because it's what it all comes down to. And so like in an MMO, that's what matters. So people don't want to have a new MMO come out because that means that hurts their hegemony on on the e-girls. I can't think of a worse way to attract girls than video games. I can think of a lot of worse ways to attract girls than video games. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. One of the hottest girls in my high school played WoW. People really underestimate how diverse WoW players are. Wow, there's an exception. That's crazy. So there was this one exception. That's nuts. Wow. I guess. Hey, you know what? Averages aren't real anymore. Thank God we have you here to keep us all in check. Shut the fuck up, you idiot. Anyway, my point is that, like with Final Fantasy, this is another reason, right? It's like Final Fantasy. People don't want to see a new MMO come out because they don't want to have that new MMO kill their existing game. That's what it comes down to. Casuals don't care about that, though. Yeah, but casuals aren't posting on the subreddit, so it doesn't matter at all. It's totally irrelevant. Like casuals aren't posting about it, and they're also not posted. They're not even inside of the ecosystem to talk about this or think about this at all, period, right? So there's no reason even to think about it. Who cares about casuals? Yeah, I think he misread what the guy said. The guy was agreeing with him. Yeah, sure. But like all I'm saying is that the bigger a game is, the more people will want to compete and play in the game and take it seriously. And if games are like kind of small and they're losing players, then less people will care about them. It's just that simple. And so it begins like a video game entropy where like the game like starts losing interest and people stop caring about it as much. And then because of that, less people start playing. And like then it's kind of like a race to the bottom, basically.